I'm Carrie. This is Student Loan Chit Chat. For those who have been with me for a while, thank you so much. And as you know, this channel is undergoing a major revamp in content, but also in lighting, sound, and camera. And also, no more intros. Let's get to it. So I had a gal pal ask me once if she should consider going into the adjunct professor world. Now, an adjunct professor, really briefly, is somebody who works on a college campus. Most likely they have a PhD. And the hope is that if they work on a college campus or enough college campuses, that in time they might be able to join the professional and formal faculty of that college campus and be deemed, say, a full-time professor. Okay, that's like their dream job. But what's really happening is that these adjunct professors are remaining adjunct professors. They bounce around from different colleges, from different campuses to teach a class, and they're oftentimes paid by the class. And that might only amount to, a few $1,000s per class. These often come without benefits or anything else. So when my friend asked me, and she's like, well, should she consider going into that? My response to her was absolutely not. I said to her, you would be better off being a middle school teacher. So without any further delay, let's get into this story. This is on PBS. It was 9 years ago, but it's as relevant, if not more relevant today. And on the PBS, they close off the comments. That just irritates me so much when the comments are closed like that, because I think different voices and different sides need to be heard. But I understand it is PBS, okay? But they've closed it off. I have no intention of closing off my comments unless someone writes something that is just so rude it's inappropriate or so unrelated. But as far as I'm concerned, folks, you guys comment away in my section on these PBS stories because they won't let you comment there. All right, here we go. This entire recording here on PBS is approximately 9 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole 9 minutes. It probably amounts to about 5 minutes that I'm going to play of it. The video will be linked in the description box in case you would like to watch the whole thing. Here we go. By the way, I hope you're all having a great evening.
Now, a look at a growing trend at colleges and universities across the country, which increasingly rely on part time adjunct instructors and the financial struggles these professors face. NewsHour economics correspondent Paul Solomon has the story. It's part of his ongoing reporting, making sense of financial news.
Tu peux tourner la page?
Life in academia turns out to be different than what French professor and single mother Nicole Beth Wallenbrock had in mind.
I've been on food stamps for, I think, about 6 months.
How many of you, and I'm 56, and I did not know this, how many of you would have ever guessed that if you are a college student, you're the student, especially if you're in your late teens or late 20s, perhaps attending college just, right after high school. How many of you would have ever imagined that the person teaching you, that's standing in front of that class, that lecture, that hall that you're at, would be on food stamps? I had absolutely no idea about this story, and I did not know this existed. But think about that.
Eric Greenberg teaches theology at Loyola Marymount University.
We are not given any kind of benefits, no medical, no dental, no vision, no retirement, no family leave, no sick leave, nothing.
I want you, and I'll talk about this briefly in the commentary afterwards, but these adjunct professors are making less, and unless they have a family to be with to help, bring in additional income, they're living worse off than I am as a middle school teacher.
To support his family, Rob Bala drives to 3 different Ohio universities to teach 6 English classes and tutors on the side.
Now, keep in mind, these people are adjunct professors. They have their doctorate degrees, okay? I'm not familiar enough of whether or not you can be an adjunct professor on just a master's. I don't think so. I think by the term professor, I believe you have to have a doctorate. However, even regardless of that, it's the fact that they're doing all this in hopes that they'll become what someday? A full professor. And like I said, even though this video was 9 years ago, it is more relevant today than ever. And as you watch it, think in terms of temp agencies and ask yourself, how is this different than when somebody goes to a temp agency and says, hey, I think one of them is like Kelly Girl Service or Manpower, and says, hey, if I work enough gigs for you, maybe you can find me a full-time permanent spot. The difference is these people are the top of the education level in the United States.
He had pneumonia last fall, worked anyway.
We go to school under any circumstances, really, because you can't afford to have your pay docked.
If I get sick, I can take some time off. I know that here in Hillsborough County, when COVID hit, they were very generous, especially at the beginning. And it was like, hey, if you get sick, stay home, we'll help take care of you. That's the way it's supposed to be. These people, this is no different than when I remember I was at Village Inn late at night with a gal pal, and we were talking to a waitress, and she was pregnant, looked like she was ready to give birth any day. And I said to her, honey, and of course I feel kind of stupid having said it, but obviously her situation, but I was like, honey, what are you doing working 11 o'clock at night on your feet? Okay. And of course, I should have thought about it. The answer was, she goes, I have to work. There's no choice. These people, these professors have to work. So imagine that, parents. You're sending your kids possibly to a school where the professor is sick and can't afford to stay home because they have no sick care.
These are adjuncts, part-time professors paid an average of $2,000 to $3,000 per class, with few to no benefits, who now make up half of college faculties.
And by the way, that number, I believe, has even gotten higher. Basically, what's happening is, as without going too far in advance into the story, basically what has happened is that what used to be just a few adjunct professors has increased.
A drastic change from just a few decades ago.
In 1970, about 80% of the faculty were on the tenure track.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and now fast forward it. I'm going to go, I wrote down the sheets here as to where I want to go, because I don't want to play the whole thing. There are just parts of it that I want to play. But be asking yourself, because this really blew me away. As you watch this, ask yourself, how is this any different than someone without a PhD trying to go and get a temporary job? And students, people who are current students, past students, or those of you with student loans, especially, be asking yourself, are they treating are colleges treating, or I should say universities, are universities treating their faculty any better than they treat the students and how to deal with their student loan debt? See if you can make a connection there. It's just something to think about. All right, the next stop is at 4 minutes and 29 seconds. So here we go.
A little more to adjuncts.
Nobody forces someone to become an adjunct. It is a very difficult way to make a full-time living.
That was his polite way of saying, we don't give a, it. Nobody forced me to become a teacher and be unable to pay my loans. No one forces people to go into the medical field and work nonprofit and in charity. No one forces people to be counselors.
Peter Brown, professor emeritus at the State University of New York, New Paltz, believes colleges are exploiting adjuncts.
And students, you wonder why you feel exploited when you attend a school that says, hey, you know what, if you go to this school, we're going to make sure you get this level job, and we're going to make sure that you make this amount of money. And all those lawsuits, especially coming from the for-profit schools. If the very school that you are attending can exploit its own professors that are teaching you, should you really expect anything different? When you go, I feel exploited by my school. Do we see the common theme? Do we see the connections? Now, let's be very clear, okay? I've had outstanding professors, and I've been very blessed. But that's not the group we're talking about, okay? We're talking about the group underneath them, way underneath them, which are the people who would like to get to their level. But the problem is, because of budget cuts, they're pretty much ending that. Not everywhere, but at this point, it's like, hey, we can save a whole lot of money if we just hire adjuncts instead. Kind of like employers who go, hey, we can save a whole lot of money if we just simply hire temporaries through a temporary agency. We don't have to give sick, medical, dental care, nothing, no vacation. So think about that.
So they can spend more on non-academic niceties.
In my video the other day, did I not say that colleges, okay, I think it was the video where I was talking about the intergenerational debt and poverty with the mother and the daughter. I did that video, I think a day or the other day, okay? And what is it that they're promoting? It's the resort factor of the campus. Stop looking at colleges based on its resort factor. Look at the academics. Look at the teacher-student ratio. Look at the job prospects and the income that's made from that job prospect. Look at how many people are still paying student loans, okay? Look at the way they're treating their adjuncts. And a lot of people don't know this.
A lot of money is spent not just on coaches, on athletics, on stadiums, on fancy facilities, on climbing walls, tuition.
That is true, by the way. I saw the documentary. Let's see if I can find it, okay? I watch a lot of news stuff. There is a university here in the United States, and if anybody knows, by all means, please share it, because I did see it, and it's not that old. This university here in the U.S. spent millions. And what did they spend it on? A rock climbing wall, where you put, I think it's a bunch of pegs and people climb themselves up. Yeah, the school really did it. And they promote it saying, hey, you know what, rock climbing. Well, let me tell you something. When you get done with that student loan debt, after climbing on their rock and wall, you're going to feel like you're climbing rocks and walls for the next 20, 30 years.
Dollars ought to go towards the instruction in the classroom and not what happens outside.
But why would they put it towards instruction in the classroom? That's the boring stuff. We don't want to hear about that. We want to know how many cafes you have. We want to know whether or not you've got a Wi-Fi charger in every room so you don't have to run back to your dorm. That's what we want to know, right? I mean, you're talking to kids who are 18, 19 years old, and they're happy to sign on the dotted line because their favorite mascot is standing in front of them. All right, we're going to skip again towards 6 minutes and 22 seconds. I do put the times down on a piece of paper. And of course, if you want to watch it in uninterrupted, you may. I just don't want to play the entire thing, just the parts I think are most relevant.
Tried to help Voitko with shelter and other assistance in the months before her death. But if poverty is what half of college faculty might be facing, why do schools continue to offer graduate degrees to the likes of Nicole Beth Wallenbrock?
How many people would want to go and get a PhD or even a master's if you knew you were going to wind up in poverty? If I had my $110,000 student loan forgiven, I wouldn't have necessarily been in poverty, okay, as someone who's retired. I mean, when I retire in 12 years, because I do have a teacher's pension, but it would have definitely put a serious damper. I mean, having 15% taken out because I owe student loans, okay? But how many people, no school wants to advertise, hey, come get a PhD with us or a master's degree or any degree with us, and you might wind up in poverty. Doesn't sell well. You've heard me say that doesn't sell well on brochures.
They keep accepting more and more PhD students at American universities because
And what happens when you get oversaturation of anything? Now, I did flunk Economics 101 when I was 19, 20, and I had to take it again. But there's one thing I did understand. Too much of anything loses its value. And I remember when I became a teacher, my dad, 18 years ago when I became a teacher, my parents have PhDs, double masters between my parents and step parents. And my dad said to me, Carrie, he says, don't get a PhD in education. He said, not at this point. Of course, he had one, but it's from the 60s and 70s.
they need to keep their own classes full.
Okay, so basically what she's saying is, I apologize, I did stop that, so you might have missed it. But what she's basically saying is, why do the schools keep offering all these upper level doctorate degrees? Okay, why do they keep offering it if it's just putting people in poverty? Because the school has to offer it. The school must offer it if the school's going to continue to bring in money. You guys have to understand, for those of you that may not be familiar with the collegiate world, and not everybody is, okay? Um, College is a business, and it is a business now more than ever, especially with the rise, and should we say fall, of a lot of these for-profit schools. Okay, I'll be honest, one of my master's degrees was from the University of Phoenix. The University of Phoenix got sued and lost, I think, for a lawsuit around 2012, 2013, and that judgment wasn't made that long ago. Okay, I graduated from the University of Phoenix in 2004, so I guess they got their crap together or something. I don't know, but it's kind of one of those things I would just sort of like to leave off my resume. Okay, I mean that tells you, you know, when you can't graduate from the school and you can't feel proud that you graduated from there, there's something wrong.
I put the question to college spokesman Terry Hartle.
Are universities arguably being irresponsible by turning out as many PhDs into a job market where some people wind up going on food stamps?
People who get PhDs owe it to themselves to think long and hard about the labor market that they're entering.
I'm willing, first off, that's another answer of, you know, we don't give a crap. Okay, I would respect his answer more if they put that on the front and center of a brochure. Same thing with a master's degree. Hey, you know what? Just because, and it is true, just because you get a master's, just because you get two masters, just because you get a PhD or two, okay? Yeah, there are people out there with double PhDs, all right? Doesn't mean you're going to get a job. But do they put this interview on the front of the brochure or on your walkthrough when you're checking out the rooms? No. That stuff's kind of like shoved in a closet. You know, we just kind of cover it up and close the doors. And I think it's rich, so to say, to promote something to people who are hopeful, to sell them on a dream of, hey, you know what, get a PhD or whatever degree from us. We're not even talking just PhDs, but this is about adjunct professors. These are the people who are at the top. These are the people who were raised and told, okay, as part of their growing up, you know what, you really want to contribute to society, you really want to make a difference, you want to get to the top of that academia, okay, go get a PhD. There are people with PhDs are $200,000 in student debt, okay? But they don't put these comments in the front when the prospective student is looking at it, and it's is looking at the program. And it's easy to say, well, these people are getting their PhDs. They should, you know, already know this. But is there, yeah, and I'll agree, okay, yeah, I should have known that two master degrees probably wasn't the greatest thing, and I should have done my homework on that. But let me ask, should, is there to some extent a moral duty? Yes, morals. Amongst all the dollars that are spent on the sports programs and everything else, is there to some extent a moral duty and obligation that a school has to be upfront with PhD candidates to tell them, look, here's the reality. You can get a PhD, but we can tell you there are people with your degree level that are living in poverty. There are people with your degree level that have food stamps. You know, you may have to work 2, 3, 4 different schools to be able, different colleges, universities, to be able to make a living. Is there an honest discussion, or is it just all kind of roses and glass mirrors and all of that stuff?
Former George Washington University President Stephen Trachtenberg goes further.
I have counseled adjunct faculty at some point, if they are not earning enough to support themselves, to not do that and go do something else with their lives.
I guess since I couldn't pay off my student loan. I guess I should have just done something else. Well, why the heck am I a middle school teacher 18 years later? I think it's rich for these people, and this is why it ticks me off that the comments were turned off. I think it is rich that people who were able to be professors in the heyday of professorships, where they were able to go in as an adjunct, knowing that within maybe just a few years they would receive the full benefits, rights, and perks of a full professor, as they should. They've earned it. But I think it's rich for people like him today to sit and go, well, the rest of you guys just go do something else with your dang lives. Isn't that rich? Kind of ticks me off. That's like, hey, you know what? I got my piece of the pie, so no need to worry about you. Go do something else. Arg.
Merely because you've earned a PhD does not oblige you to take on a life of penury.
Do they put that inside the brochure also? You're going to live a life of poverty, or what was the word he used? Penury or something like that. They don't even let you put on subtitles on this. I try to always put the subtitles on for you guys, but then let me tell you, this is PBS. PBS doesn't even allow you to do that, okay? So who wants to read a brochure that says, yes, come to our school, major with a PhD in whatever subject, but plan on living a life of poverty, food stamps, no benefits, yada yada. Who'd want to go to that school? I don't. But these fat cats that are being interviewed, and not the adjunct professors, but the ones that are, they came up during the heyday. They're good. So I guess that makes it everybody else's problem.
Though he wasn't personally counseled by Trachtenberg.
Okay, I think we're going to skip that, and I believe that is basically the end of it. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. So I'm going to go ahead and close it here. I'll be back with my final thoughts. I can honestly tell you that until I saw this PBS documentary a couple years back, I had no idea that adjunct professors were treated like this. I always I always imagined that they were very respected. Yes, I knew they weren't professors, but I definitely knew that they were to be respected. How can we here in the United States as a society expect the best from our students? How can we encourage students to try their best, work their hardest to climb the ladder when this is the result? How can we expect that? If we here in the United States, because this is the only country I can speak for, okay, if we here in the United States are telling students how important it is to get higher education to keep going up, up, and up, but yet when they reach the pinnacle, when they reach that top flag and they pull it off the mountaintop, and then we basically look at them and go, oh, but you know what, now that you've reached it, you're really not worth that much. How are we supposed to convince students from dropping out of school when they look and see things like this? And of course, they probably will never see anything like this, but the fact is that it exists. Just because you don't know it exists doesn't make it invisible, doesn't mean it's not there. Students, I'm talking directly to you students, especially those with student debt, especially those who are currently in school. Look at how the university you go to treats your faculty. Look at how the experienced professors, the ones that have the tenure, treat the faculty. Use that as a guide to how they're going to treat you. Because students, if you think that, as you're sitting here trying to figure out how to pay off your student loan bill that's starting up again, okay, that's already the interest. Remember, don't forget the interest started September 1st. So whether or not you're using that on-ramp period where you actually have 1 year to sort out your payments and either make payments, don't make payments, make partial payments, and it will not be reported to the credit bureau until approximately September, October 2024, but interest will be accruing as you're trying to figure that out. And I know there are plenty of students out there, they feel screwed over, okay, so to speak, by their school. They feel like their school took advantage of them. Now, the lucky ones got their student loan forgiven because perhaps they went to a school that was defunct, okay? Trust me, when they said the University of Phoenix was getting sued, I was looking. And it's sad because the people I met, the professors that I met there were great. But oftentimes that's not where the problem is. The problem is in the management of the school. It's in the way the corporation runs. It's not necessarily on the front line because those aren't the people that are making those decisions. But students, as you're sitting there, feeling, some of you getting depressed because, you're going to have to go work a second job, or you're going to have to give up something that you really enjoy to make these bills. Okay. Look at the way the school's treating your professor, the one that's teaching you. It's kind of like, poo just keeps running downhill. Okay, look at how that school is treating the adjunct professors, and you should be finding out how many adjunct professors are at your school, how many adjunct professors are teaching you, because you have to keep in mind that for the PhD, for the most part, really isn't about teaching. PhDs, because I got a whole family of PhDs. Okay, um, PhDs are really about research. And for a lot of these professors, I will be honest, I mean, the job is more research based than it's teaching based. Okay. So a person with a PhD may be teaching classes, but really the bulk of their time and possibly interest is in research. And then that research and those findings get spread into academic and peer journals, helps promote the university, yada, yada. But really be asking yourself, if they can teach, if they can treat professors, your adjunct, okay, not your tenured professors, the ones that have earned all the stars and stripes, but these are the people underneath them. Okay, if they can treat them like that, if they can treat them like they were Kelly Girl, Kelly Service, Manpower, and all those other temporary agencies, if they can cycle them through like temp workers, no insult to temp workers, okay, all right, but let's face it, you're talking people with PhDs. If they can treat the top of the academic stack like that, do you really think they give a rip whether or not you can pay your student loan, or whether or not they were accurate in telling you if you were going to be able to get a job in this degree? Think about that. It blew me away when I saw this a couple years ago, and it's only been probably 2 years ago. I know the video is 9 years old, but really it's only been, the last couple years I actually saw this. I had no idea. I had no idea that adjunct professors were treated this poorly. And to think, and even though I did clip out I didn't play the whole thing, okay, but I know one of them is able to survive because he's married. Okay, I know the young lady we saw, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't play the whole clip, but I know the young lady we saw with the child. Okay, she ends up basically saying, but this is what she wants to do. I cut that part of the clip out, but in the end, she's like, this is my dream. This is what I want. When you get to the top of the academic field, does it seem like you should have to either decide to do your career dream professor job or live in poverty? Does it have to be that extreme? Do we do that to the sports people at the school? Do we say to the sports director at the universities, hey, you know what, you'd like to lead this sports team? Well, you got a choice. You can keep the job as sports director or head of or whatever, water boy, whatever. You can keep your job, coach, but you're going to live in poverty. Or better yet, you know what, why don't you just go find something else? Because after all, being a coach, we never said that just because you became a coach, you were going to make money or anything. Would we take that attitude towards the sports program? No. Now, I know there are people who will say, well, the difference is, and they are right, professors, teachers of all, K through 12, collegiate, okay, we cost money, okay? You want to get a teacher like me in your classroom, you want to get other teachers in your classroom, it's going to cost you money. Sports brings in money. So yeah, I understand that, some people say, well, that's because teachers cost and sports bring in. But could we possibly get rid of the climbing wall and give up some Wi-Fi hotspots if necessary? Well, maybe not the Wi-Fi hotspots. I do like getting on my cell phone. But could we possibly give up the climbing wall? And let's put that money towards a professor's salary. In another video I saw, and I chose not to play because, some of these videos, I play the ones that I think have the most amount of enriching information, but I do know that I saw another one, and this is how inexpensive, and I hate to use the word cheap, but this is how cheap the universities are. A adjunct professor's income was literally the equivalent of one student's enrollment in the class. So a student would pay $2,000 for a class. That's how much the adjunct professor was going to get paid. So let's say this adjunct professor is teaching, 200 students in a stadium-like class, and it can get even higher than that. Their pay was the equivalent of one student's tuition for just that class. Does that seem fair? I'm an adjunct professor. I've worked my way up to the PhD. I'm at the top of my game. You give me 200-300 students in a lecture class, and you're going to pay me the salary of one student's enrollment. Something to think about. So remember, students, the next time you feel like nobody cares about your student loans from your school and you feel like you were taken advantage of, remember this video and ask yourself, how many adjunct professors are teaching you and what is their standard of living? And does that really make you proud of your school? I'm Carrie. This is Student Loan Chit Chat. I do hope you will consider subscribing and have a great day. Oh, actually, no. Have a great night. Bye.